Out of control fraud. A message to Professor William Black. Out of control fraud. You see, Bill Black, way back in the days of the 1960s, and even before, but let's start with Dean Couch and the Couch Mortgage Company in Houston, Texas. Good old Houston. This is before Cat Wolford was ever mentioned, and way before Catherine Austin Fitz, and of course, even before Peter Bruton wrote the book there, The Mafia, the CIA, and George Bush. You see, Professor Black, the Continental Illinois Bank and the Penn Square Bank there in Oklahoma City, they were engaged in massive lending and speculations of oil and minerals and gas. Suffice it to say, real estate swindling and scheming in West Texas and Oklahoma. Lots of those files and huge amounts of that evidence just coincidentally were in the Murrah building when it went boom. You know, the federal building there in Oklahoma City that got blown up. Good old Jeff Skilling, the smartest guy in the room. Remember Bill Black? Let's go back and focus on the investigative journalism of Paul Friggins and Don Bowles for a minute. And let's examine the real estate swindles and land frauds, the massive land speculations of the king of Arizona and all that dirt dealing and flipping that had been going on in Florida since the 1920s. Even before that, the Yazoo land frauds, and then of course you had the great railroads that went west, and the Homestead Act land frauds, and the massive land frauds in the Poconos, and the massive land frauds in the Carolinas and up in Utah and Texas during the 1970s, Bill Black, which actually, the Texas real estate speculations and the Texas real estate frauds is where you sort of came along with the massive collapse of the banks. Oh, and of course, the other story, the savings and loans. The best way to loot the financial system is with real estate scheming and real estate scamming. Or I guess maybe like the Western Bank Westheimer, the Western Bank East Tex 59. Let's see, the Western Bank. Though there was 5 Western banks, Bill Black. They were all over the city of Houston, and those Western banks, Rita Lababetti Corporation, Rita Lababetti Group, RLG Holdings, Westgate Investments, were doing the old hocus pocus with Richard Secord and Oliver North and Robert Owens and Bud McFarlane and that whole bunch around Admiral Poindexter and the Mafia, the CIA, and George Bush, the marvelously famous stories of the Houston Chronicle and the Houston Post. During the days of the Powers brothers. You remember Bill Black? The Powers brothers over at the, I guess they called it the Arena Summit building there on Bissonnette and East Tex 59. The old Summit Towers, the bank building over there, the Powers brothers. The Colonial House scandal. Remember that one, Bill Black? The Colonial and the Sharpstown banking scandal, and let's see, the Texas Rent-A-Bank scandal. Right, Bill Black? Tell them about the Texas Rent-A-Bank scandal, and then we can talk of out of control fraud and the speculations and the massive money launderings of the biggest CIA banks in the history of the world. The largest money laundering swindles and scams of the CIA and the Defense Intelligence, what do they call that there? The Defense Intelligence Industry, cartel, what do you call them there? Oh, infrastructure, the Defense Intelligence Infrastructure, Professor William Black. Now, if you take the work of the investigative reporters and editors that were working sort of after Don Bowles got his arm blown off and his legs blown off in the early part of the 1970s by the mafia in Phoenix, Arizona, and you start looking at the real estate scheming and scamming in California and Utah and Florida and Texas and Arizona, oh my God, Arizona, the Carolinas and the Poconos, and then you'll understand how those looting bank owners, the best way to rob a bank is to be in the real estate speculation business and own a bank. And oil and gas and minerals futures and speculations like Penn Square and Continental Illinois were engaged in. That's a very useful modus operandi. And if you have any difficulty with that summation, get a hold of the white elephant lady, old Catherine Wolford. She'll explain it to you. Professor William Black. Now to my buddy Patrick S. Lovell, I want you to be reminded of something, Patrick Lovell, that long before you bought the house that you lost in foreclosure, there were people working on exposing the gargantuan gaming and the parasitical looting of the financial system. Long before you bought your house that you lost in bankruptcy, Patrick S. Lovell. Now, there's a little lady that's friends with Richard Bowen and Michael Winston. And this is just a for instance because John O'Brien and Jeff Thigpen over in North Carolina and in Massachusetts, they know who Judson Witham is. I absolutely guarantee you. And all the major search engines across the world are extremely familiar with bank looting and trillions laundered and good old Judson Witham. Because Bill Black, I was involved in blowing the whistle and exposing it long before you wrote your book. The best way to rob a bank is to own one. I was on the ground in Houston, Texas, and being written up in the Chronicle and the Conroe. Let's not forget old Conroe Courier there, and the land speculation fiasco of Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos all over the United States. What were the Marcoses? You can ask K.C. Tuckness and Montgomery County Judge Alan B. Sadler. K.C. Tuckness, she knows what I'm talking about. And so doesn't Judge Sadler. The money laundering techniques of the Marcos regime and real estate speculations all over Texas and Utah and Florida and Arizona and New York. And I mean, this was going on before Imelda bought the 3,000 pairs of very famous shoes. Professor William K. Black. So to sum this one up, folks, all the information and the links you need are listed below. And to my old friend Peter Bruton, and they shut the Houston Post down when they started asking questions of the CIA. What the CIA was doing, laundering money and, financing and funding Iran-Contra and Charlie Wilson's war from uptown Houston. From the Houstonian estates, actually, William K. Black. Because you see, Mr. William K. Black, the Bushes, who lived at the Houstonian, and the gangster banksters of uptown Houston, that's where Oliver North and Richard Secord, hell, they used to run their fundraisers from the Galleria Hotel. Yeah, they're at the Galleria. They're on Westheimer, right next door to the Western Banks, by coincidence. This is funny stuff, isn't it, K.C. Tuckness and Mike Winston and Richard Bowen? Extremely funny stuff, Mark Stopa and Matt Widener. Oh, yeah. And, you know, I want to kind of end this one with this. The Clintons and the McDougalls and the Ozark Realty Company of Arkansas fame, they didn't invent dirt dealing and flipping. And if you're really interested in getting to the bottom of all this, toxic zombie developments. You know, it's sort of like toxic zombie assets, only it's toxic zombie developments. Facebook has banned it from their platform. Folks, the information and links you need are listed below. And hey, K.C. Tuckness, why don't you tell Eric Vaughn and Patrick S. Lovell and Mr. Stephen Grumbine about good old Judson Witham and what he was doing before Eric Vaughn and Patrick Lovell and Grumbine were in puberty. Folks, I'm going to leave it right there. And Bill Black, you got it right, pal. Out of control fraud.